Hello, awesome people. I hope you're having a great day today. Today we're taking a look at the third novel in this collection called The Eternal Champion Omnibus, which I'll link to you below. It's called Phoenix and Obsidian. It's the next novel rather, in the Eternal Champion saga by Michael Moorcock and so forth. It follows directly from the first book in this series, The Eternal Champion. And then the second book that I went back and read, The Sundered Worlds, which is a science fiction short story novel, which is also set in the Eternal Champion series, is also set there too, but it's not a follow-up. So I think you probably, if you're going to read this, you'll probably want to read Phoenix and Obsidian after the Eternal Champion, since basically what's happening is that the Eternal Champion finishes with Ericose, one of the aspects of the Eternal Champion finishing its west. And the next one begins with him on that plane, and then early on he is pulled to another plane of existence where he's Erlich as the Eternal Champion. And in a couple of other places where the Eternal Champion knows who he is, or is with his companion, who also knows who he is regularly called Erlich, and they talk about his adventures in Erlich and so forth. So this is Erlich era. Erlich. So he's sent to a plane that is set, basically it's a dying Earth, like Jack Vance's short stories and novels that are set there, or like Clark Ashton Smith's works before that in the Wolf era. So that's kind of cool. So there's a lot of the sun has definitely is no longer even turning across the sea. It's stopped. It's a dim red. So the planet's cold. So we're in a permanent ice age. So that's what's happening here. And Ericose arises early, and he has this big giant sled with 4 polar bears that carry him around to the destination to go to the people that he found out. So we find out early on in this planet where he was as Ericose, that the grand configuration has happened again. That was happening when he first arrived, and so they think it might have been the reason why he came, why he was able to meet the call of the Eternal Champion. And now he's there. So now he remembers himself as Ericose, although he's living as Erlich, the King of the Black Keep, in this new plane of existence, which is also Earth. So they're sort of the setup of what's happening. So what's going to end up happening? Who called on him? Who's the enemy that he's called to fight? And those sorts of things are going to happen. So that's what's happening here. I'm probably giving this more like a 7 out of 10 rather than some of the previous ones in this series that I've gone back and reread for you folks. And this is the second time I've read this novel in this collection too, that I picked up when I was high school and doing a deep dive into Michael Moorcock, because he was becoming my favorite writer after reading the 4 books in the Hawkmoon series. So I picked up this, was my first omnibus, because it's the first one, which I'll link you to below for you folks. It's about 130 so pages long. I read it in 3 days, about 40 pages a day, except for the middle day, which was 50. The first day was about an hour and 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Second day was another 10 or 15 minutes longer, and then last night was about an hour and maybe 8 minutes. It wasn't even an hour and 10. So this is not a long novel for you to go back and read for the first time if you've never heard about it. So it's not a huge thing. Most of his books aren't even 200 pages long. You can knock them out in 3 days. For example, the 150 page days I've been doing 50 pages a day. This one did 40 pages a day except for the middle day. I did 50 because I was really into it. So that's kind of cool. You can definitely read them very quickly, and a lot of things happen with this thing. So this is the Erlich Adventures and so forth, Phoenix and Obsidian for you folks, in the Dying Earth genre of worlds for you folks. Now, the Eternal Champion is a multiversal conflict, where a conflict between law and chaos is happening on every plane of existence. And the winners and the losers of each plane will gain or lose various things. And the Eternal Champion is an iconic hero that appears on every plane of existence out there and fights the good fight for law and for the balance against the evil of chaos. And that is the central sort of person who he is. Now he has a woman who also has an incarnation of her on every plane of existence, his love interest, and a companion who is also on everything too. And in this book, we'll find out that he also has, and you'll find out early on, that the black sword also appears too. That's his weapon of strength that allows him to do the things that he does. That's also on every plane too, just like Stormbringer with Elric. Elric is the big winner of the day. He was the big winner of Michael Moorcock's stuff. For you folks, the first novel, Stormbringer, was published in the 60s in 65, but most of those were published later on, and so forth. And Eric Hosey's work was published in 1970 that we read, The Eternal Champion, that introduced him and did a deeper dive into it early on in the series' career. So now we're doing a deep dive into him. Again, he was my favorite writer in high school from R.A. Salvatore after My Church the Word and stuff. So I definitely enjoyed that for folks, and I definitely enjoyed my deeper dive into him. And I continue to read him a lot in my first couple of years of college, and then I encountered in my junior year of college H.P. Lovecraft and his horror stuff. And I began to do a deep dive into him, and he became my favorite writer after Michael Moorcock about 6 years in. So there you are. I'll go ahead and leave you to it. Have you read this novel? If so, what did you think about it? Let's talk about it in the comments below. As a reminder to the title of my channel, The Worst Thing About New Books is a quote by a French philosopher, Jacques Joubert, who said that the worst thing about new books was that they kept us from reading the old ones. And in this case, an older novel. It was published in the 70s before I was born. In 76, it's definitely an older work. And are definitely the big passions of this channel that we oftentimes have forgotten about for you folks. So there you are. I'll go ahead and leave you to it. Have you read? If you enjoyed this, why not hit that subscribe button? There's going to be a lot more of these to follow. And finally, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it and watching my video. We all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.